Welcome! Today we're gonna glaze some big bowls like this one. It is about 50 centimeter wide, so it is a bit of a challenge. So how do you glaze a big bowl like this and how do you fire it? That's what I'm gonna show you today. I have glazed large bowls in the past. This is one of them. It's not nearly as big as that one, but it's still a big bowl. And I think it came out really beautiful. I love this combination of floating blue and a Heath A2 White and some oxides. Just really beautiful. But this one is even bigger. And with these big bowls, there's a limit to how you can glaze them. I prefer usually to dip my pots. But with something this big, I would need a bathtub full of glaze, and I don't have that. So there's only 3 other options left. One of them would be to pour glaze. Inside, swirl it around, throw it out, turn it around, and then throw it over the edge. But the problem with this is, in the inside, when you have such a big bowl, there's a risk that you're going to get much more glaze at the bottom than in the sides because it takes time to get all around. And on the outside, you need a really big bucket to collect all the glaze that is poured over the edge. And also, I found that it's difficult with these big pots to get the thickness that I want. And especially with the floating blue, I need a lot of thickness. And so then you could, of course, brush it on. I don't usually like brushing. It takes too much time. I think it's difficult to apply it evenly, and you need to adjust your glaze, typically with some CMC or gum material, to make it a little thicker so you can brush it. But I think it's difficult to apply it the right way, and also it takes a lot of time, especially with a big bowl like this. So I will opt in for the last option, and that is to use spray glazing. I love spraying glazes. Not only is it a fast and very smooth way of glazing a big pot, bowl, or vase, or whatever it is, like this, but also with spraying, you can sort of blend in different glazes in a smooth way between them. And it's really, really nice. And it's much easier to control the layer once you get a feel for it. Because when you spray, it's a much thinner layer each time. So you need a few more times, but it's fast, it's fun, it's not that difficult. My problem with glazing, or spray glazing, is that I don't have a spray booth, which of course would be nice, but I don't. So I spray glaze outside. That works fine, except when it's raining, or if it's freezing cold, because then of course the watery glaze will just freeze up, if it's too windy. And over the past few days, we are getting spring now in Denmark, so it is getting warmer, but it's been so windy that I haven't been able to do it. But now it's actually looking better. It is not super warm, but 15, 17 degrees. It's enough to be outside. And it's not so windy. So today I'm going to spray glaze this one, another one that is almost as big as this, and then one that is a little bit smaller. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to begin with the small of the 2 big bowls, because this one is just small enough that I can put some support and a shelf above it. The other one is too big for that. So the biggest one I can only put on the top shelf, nothing above it. As usual, I'm going to start out by cleaning it to make sure that there's no dust or any particles left on the surface, so the glaze can stick really well. I'm going to do both the inside and the outside and let it dry just a couple of minutes when I mix up the glaze. So here we go. Now I need to mix my glaze. Even though my glaze is well mixed and already sieved, I always use this small sieve when I fill up my container. That way, I'm sure that there's no lumps coming in, because they can get stuck, of course, in the spray, and just have to go and rinse it and stuff. So it's just an extra precaution. One of the tricky parts about spray glazing is to judge how thick a layer you put on. One of the ways that I check it is, of course, I look at the pot, but I also look at my bucket and see how much glaze I actually used. And I have sort of an idea that I'm probably going to use a full bucket on each side, because the floating blue needs a lot of glaze. And that's a good thing with this glaze, that I can almost never give it too much, but I can definitely give it too little. If I give it too little, it will be brownish, purplish, maybe even very dark, almost black. And I want that floating blue color. So I'm going to give it a few more layers. Now I think the basic layer is good. I used almost the entire bucket of glaze, and in my experience that's about the right thickness. But contrary to what I just said, that I don't like brushing on glaze, I do like to add a little more splashes with this floating blue, because unlike most glazes, it actually looks nice when it's not completely even. So there's areas where it will float more and areas where it will float less, and that actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to splash a little more on it. And that way also make sure that there's plenty of glaze on it. This is not something I would do with any kind of glaze, because it could really look awful. But for the floating blue, by experience, it usually looks nice. So we're gonna see. So now we should have a good layer. Last time I did some big pots, it was a bit cold, so I was rushing it a little bit, and the layer got a little bit too thin, and it got too dark. And I didn't get too much of that strong blue that I like. So now we made it good, I think. So now I want to clean it up, the bottom, so we can turn it around and we're ready to put it into the kiln. But I'm going to show you something. I don't know if you remember when I was throwing this, and I always do this with these big pots where I want the glaze to look like it goes all the way down. But of course it's risky to glaze it all the way down, because if it just runs like a millimeter, it glues to your kiln shelves. So what I do is a little visual trick. You can see this is where it sits. This is the flat part. And then I add this little, maybe 8 millimeters of a 45-degree angle. And this, along with the flat part, I'm going to clean. When you look at it from this angle, you can of course see the glaze doesn't go all the way down. But when you turn it around, this 45-degree angle almost disappears. So it looks like the glaze goes all the way down to the foot. That's actually a very good little visual trick, and it works wonders. So I think this is good. In the end, after we glazed it and it's fired, I'll show you how this, I'll call it a visual trick, works, and how it makes the pot look like it glazed all the way down. On top of the floating blue, I'm also going to add 2 more glazes. A little bit of the Heath A2 White, just on the outside of the rim. I'm also going to add a little bit of Temmeku Gold. That will help create more floating effect, and especially the Temmeku Gold will make some darker stripes down the side. Usually looks pretty good. And I'm going to do this with a brush. I could clean up my spray and spray it on, but it's just a very small border that I'm going to use, so I can do it by brushing. Because I'm actually not going to brush, I'm more going to splash it on in a way. If I was brushing it, there would be a risk that I would kind of scrape off the floating blue. I'm just going to do it like this. Dip it, I don't know what you call it, but just a very small border like this. So, now I'm going to let it dry and then add the Temmeku Gold. I'm going to apply the Temmeku Gold sort of the same way, just dipping it, not really brushing. So I'm not going to move the brush over the side, but just dipping some of it on here. It's very little. There is a risk you won't see anything, but I think it's going to give us a little more movement. So that's it. Now we're ready to turn it around and do the other side. Now I'm going to do the most tricky part about this sort of application. I'm going to add some of my Heath A2 White in the middle. And the thing is, I only want it in the middle, and then I'm going to draw some stripes out in like a star-like pattern. You've seen it before on some of my pots. And the thing is, I can add, but I can't subtract. And I have very short time to do it. So I'm not going to talk much. I'm just going to put it in, swirl a little bit around, and then draw some of these star patterns out from the middle. So that's it. Now it looks like this. And of course, it's gonna blend more into each other. And now I'm gonna let this dry just a little bit. And then I'm gonna add a couple of oxides to enhance this star sort of shape to it. First, I'm gonna add some copper oxide wash. We'll give it sort of like some greenish stripes into this. That usually looks fine. And again, I only have this one time to do it. I can't redo this. I think this is going to be good. And next, I'm going to use a cobalt carbonate wash. So, that's it for that part. Because similar to the outside, I'm also going to add a little bit of the white A2 Heath and a little bit of the Temmeku Gold. That's it. Now I want to put it in the kiln. I just washed my hands because be careful when you handle it. I'm pretty sure that it's clean underneath, but I don't want to put any finger marks, and especially not wet fingers. As you can see, there is very, very little space. There's only like a couple of millimeters between my support and my bowl, but I think it should be good enough. And they don't have full support down there, but I've done this before, and I think it's going to work. The second bowl, the biggest one, is basically going to be glazed the same way as the first one. So I'm not going to spend too much time showing you that because that's going to be repetition. So I'm going to fast forward on that and start the kiln, and then we can look at the results in a couple of days. That's it. My biggest bowl so far. I think the glazing is going to be good. Let's put it in the kiln and get it started. As you can see, it just fit. I mean, it could be a couple centimeters wide, and that was actually what I aimed for. Remember when I was throwing this, I was aiming for 54 centimeters, and it's only 50 only. But as you see, I wouldn't be able to fit support for another shelf on top of this. So it sits on the top, and there's enough space for the lid to close. So let's do that and get this kiln going. There we go. Now it's just time to wait. For a long time, I really hated this wait because I just want to see the results right now, but that's not how pottery works. And in the beginning of the time when I had my own kiln, I wanted to open it early, but now I just realized for my kiln, for the typical fire I do, 36 hours, then it's fine. Then it's safe to open, no problem. So I'll just go and do something else. And see you soon again, and hopefully it will turn out nice. After the painful waiting time, I think the two bowls came out really nice. It has become one of my favorite combinations, this floating blue A2 Heath White and oxides, and sometimes a bit of the Temmeku Gold. They blend really well into each other, and they form a beautiful combination in my mind. In this case, I brushed them off, I brushed them on, and to create this sort of a star pattern, On some of my other bowls, I sprayed the white inside, and that flows more into each other. I like both of it. I'm very happy with the results, and of course this is a huge bowl, but they came out nice. One of the things I wanted to show you is this glazing trick I used. Remember, at the bottom, I only wiped off the very bottom, and then about 5 centimeters on this 45 degree angle. And I don't know if you can see it here, but the glaze did run a little bit, just a couple of millimeters. And it's not so much that it actually hit the shelf. It's just stopping a little bit before. But now when you turn it upside down, upside up, and you put it on the table, it actually looks like the glaze go all the way down. It doesn't. It's a visual trick, a glazing trick. But it looks like it, but it's a more safe way than actually glazing all the way down. So this works so great for me. The bigger bowl, however, it also came out really nice. I think it looks great. It's amazing on a table with fruits or something, but dealing with very wide forms like this makes it very vulnerable to cracks, especially in the rim area. And this one did in fact get a small crack here. It was already there. I tried to repair it when it was bisque fired. Or actually it happened during drying. In bisque frying, it was still visible. And I thought, well, let's glaze it and see what happens. 3 things can happen when you have a small crack like that and you glaze it. Sometimes the glaze will just cover it and it looks better. Sometimes the glaze will make it worse, kind of goes into the crack and, I don't know, sort of expanded, and it becomes even worse. In this case, it was sort of neutral because the glaze, of course, didn't attach itself the same way where this crack is. I don't know if you can see it better like this. But, so, I mean, it is a failure in a way. But I still think that the total look and feel of the bowl is so amazing that I'm not going to throw it out. I'm not going to sell it either, because I don't like to sell pottery that's have technical flaws like this. But I think I will keep it or give it to a good friend or something. All in all, I think it came out right. I will do something with these super large white bowls. This is the biggest one I ever made, about 50 centimeters. It is because when such a wide and especially shallow bowl dries, it raises itself. And that movement went very fast within 24 hours, and it actually shrink the width, remember, 4 centimeters. So it used to be 54 when I threw it, and then within just 24 hours it was only 50. And that is, of course, a rapid movement for the clay and make it very vulnerable to these sort of cracks. So for future ones in this size or even bigger, I will probably cover the rim. You can add a newspaper, wet it a little bit, maybe cover it with plastic to let it dry a little bit slower. That should help prevent this sort of failure. But all in all, I'm happy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as usual, I will have another one coming up next Sunday at 5 p.m. Central European Time. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, share, comment. I always welcome all your comments. I love them. Great suggestions. You're even welcome to critique what I'm doing. I'm open for it, as long as you keep a proper language. So, I hope to see you soon again, and enjoy the day.